I'm back here with the 135 f2 Samyang E-mount for, I have it on my Sony a7 II here. First thing I want to go over is the focus ring. The focus ring is extremely stiff out the box. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be, but I hope that it loosens up a little bit. It's very stiff. And one thing I did notice from the Samyang is that the focus throw is extremely long. Two full rotations to get it to infinity. It's not a bad thing. Actually, the reason why I sold my Canon 135 f2 was because the focus throw was too short on it, and because the shallow depth of field, it's extremely shallow on this lens. If I move it a little bit, it will jump out of focus. So I needed something like this where I can fine tune the focus, you know. See, it's got the aperture ring right here, the aperture manual aperture ring. It's in 2-step increments from 2 to f22. All right, and I'm going to talk about bokeh and the aperture after this. I want to talk about my biggest gripe with this lens. My biggest gripe is the size of this lens. It is a massive lens for being manual focus. And I say it's massive because, and this is with the lens on, it's ridiculous. But the reason why I say it's massive is because I owned the Canon. I had owned the Canon 135 f2. The Canon 135 f2 had autofocus, and it was blazing fast at that. And it's smaller than this lens. It's crazy. How is the 135 f2 with autofocus smaller than a manual focus lens? That's something I don't understand. But when it comes down to it, I wouldn't trade this lens in for the world. This lens outperforms the Canon 135 f2. The Canon 135 f2 is praised as like the sharpest Canon L lens, but this lens is sharper. This lens handles chromatic aberration better. This lens handles sun flare better. I am like crazy impressed with this lens right here with the Samyang. When I say sharper, I mean the images are razor sharp. If you ever seen Mac Ranger's videos, he has really good comparison to like the Otis and the Sigma 51.4, and he gets really in there, and there's so much detail in the images. And this, I feel, is the same exact way. When I see him on the computer, it's, I mean, crazy detail. This lens is the sharpest lens I've ever used in any camera, and I've used pretty much almost every L lens, and this lens beats all of them when it comes to sharpness, at least. The bokeh is I can't complain about the bokeh. The bokeh is beautiful, and you'll see in some of the sample images that I have in the computer, you'll see the autofocus area is just extremely buttery and beautiful. So the bokeh is beautiful on this lens. So, you know, I give a 10 for sharpness. I could give a 10 for bokeh. I mean, it's that good. What else about this lens can I talk about? Okay, I said it handles sun flare better than the Canon 135 f2, but it's still not great. I don't know if it's something with the focal length and how the glass is put together inside, but when the sun is directly in front of the lens and the sun comes in, it kind of washes out the image, and you know, the image lacks a lot of contrast, and it's really hard to recover in post. That's one thing I have noticed, and but it does handle it better than the Canon. The Canon, the images would almost be unusable, and shooting into the sun with this, I could retrieve some contrast, and the images would be usable. And the last thing I want to talk about with the Samyang 135 f2. Last thing I want to talk about is using the manual focus. Okay, so buying this for a Canon or a Nikon DSLR with no focus peaking, I don't recommend it, because if you don't have focus magnification, I don't see how you're going to get any of your pictures in focus shooting at f2. Everybody wants the eye in focus, and sometimes I have trouble getting the eye completely in focus with focus peaking and focus magnification. Usually the first shot I get in focus, but a little bit of movement in the person or the camera when I'm taking a shot, a little bit of movement, and it goes out of focus. So when I'm taking a shot and I magnify in the eye, and that's the thing about focus peaking. Focus peaking is amazing, but when I get the, I have focus peaking in red, so anything in focus is in red. But sometimes when I get the eye in red and I take the shot and then I press play and I look at the image, the eye is still out of focus because the depth of field is so shallow in this lens. So what I do, I got C1, custom button 1. I got that as my focus magnification. I press that, I zoom into the eye, I fine tune the focus, and I shoot, and it's super sharp. But the second shot, sometimes you might have to refocus because they might have moved or you might have moved a little bit. And that's the only part that sucks when shooting with this in manual focus, even on the Sony camera. But even with that, I feel like there are so many pros with this lens that I enjoy using it, and I don't mind if I have to refocus sometimes, because I know that when I see that eye completely sharp and I take that, when I press this button right here, it's going to be a beautiful image, beautifully sharp image. So that's going to be my review for this lens. It's not much to it. It's for it's like $450. I paid $450 for this. For $450, this is probably the best purchase I've ever made. And 135 is my favorite focal length. I fell in love with it on the Canon side, and now I have it for Samyang, and this is my favorite focal length. Pictures are so uniquely compressed, and the shallow depth of field is just amazing. So, guys, and now time to look at some sample images from the 135 f2. I shot a Sweet 16 the other day, and I want to show you some of the images taken from the Samyang, and I also want to show you an example of when you have the eye in focus the first shot, and then a little bit of movement, it'll get out of focus. I have an example of that too. So stay tuned. I'm about to post. I'll show you right now. Okay, guys. So here's one of the first pictures I took with the Samyang. It was a maternity shoot. I had a strobe to the left, and yeah, it came out perfect. It came out beautiful. Here you can see how sharp it came out. It was extremely sharp. I think I shot this at f9, so there's no reason why it shouldn't be sharp. Just an all-around beautiful image. Look at all the detail in their faces. Here's from the Sweet 16. Here's a portrait of the girl, and you're gonna see how sharp this image is right here. I'm gonna zoom in, and it is just, there's so much detail, and these pictures are only corrected for color. No sharpening was added. And here's a shot. I took it farther back, and I focused on her face. Look at the compression. The depth of field is just gorgeous. And when I zoom in, I mean, the detail, the bokeh, the separation, it's almost like a 3D effect. I mean, this lens is just amazing. Alright, for this one, here's her and her date, I guess you can say. I focused on him in this shot. I focused on his eye, and you're going to see how she's a little bit out of focus, just being a little bit forward of him. So I'm going to zoom in here, and right here, you see that he's perfectly in focus. So a lot of detail, and she's a little bit blurred because she's a little bit forward. Here's another portrait of the girl. Beautiful shot, aimed right at her eye. So this is an example of the focus peaking, being, the second shot kind of being out of focus. The first one perfectly in focus. Beautiful bokeh. Look at the beautiful round bokeh. And then this next shot, it was the very next shot. I didn't refocus, so I thought I had it in focus. But when I zoom in here, you see that she's blurred out. So that's one of the problems with shooting this lens. Like I said, I don't have a problem with it, and I don't think you're gonna have a problem with it either. it's all about how you shoot, and if you take the time to do the manual focusing, you're gonna absolutely love this lens. So yeah, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you in the next one.